Greetings and welcome to another Uncovered List. This is where we reveal 10 classic recordings that are actually cover versions. And this time around, we're talking New Wave, specifically the 5 years that immediately followed the punk explosion in 1977. Number 10, I Can't Stand Up for Falling Down, Elvis Costello and the Attractions. Between the years 1977 and 1982, Elvis Costello was a very busy lad indeed. He produced no less than 7 albums, and his 4th LP, Get Happy, contained an amazing 20 tracks on a single disc. The record's lead-off single was I Can't Stand Up for Falling Down, a snappy up-tempo number that reflected Get Happy's retro R&B feel. It became Elvis' second, and as it turned out, last ever UK Top 5 hit. The original was by the much-adored vocal duo Sam and Dave, known as Double Dynamite due to the extraordinary power of their live act. I Can't Stand Up for Falling Down was a B-side to their single Soothe Me, which had made the UK Top 40. Whilst Elvis Costello's version of the tune was upbeat and cooking, the Sam and Dave original, in contrast, was slow and simmering.
It confused me. Why I'm not
Number 9, It Ain't What You Do, It's the Way That You Do It, the Funboy 3 with Bananarama. In 1981, Terry Hall, Linville Golding and Neville Staple suddenly defected from the highly successful British ska band The Specials to form the Funboy 3. Their first single was a UK Top 20 hit, and then Terry Hall noticed an up-and-coming female trio called Bananarama in the Face magazine. On the strength of their looks alone, Hall invited them to sing on Funboy 3's next release, and It Ain't What You Do, It's the Way That You Do It became the trio's biggest ever hit. Bananarama then invited the Funboy 3 to sing on their next single, Really Saying Something, and that became the girl trio's breakthrough record.
I didn't know what life was all about, but then I learned I must confess that life is like a game of chess. It ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it.
Ain't what you do.
It's the way how you do it.
Ain't what you do.
The original was by the Jimmy Lunsford Orchestra, a popular swing outfit whose music contained plenty of light-hearted humour. The band's trumpeter was a legendary arranger and composer Cy Oliver, and he wrote Tain't What You Do, It's the Way That You Do It with trombonist and vocalist James Trummy Young. The song became so popular in 1939 that no less than 2 major cover versions appeared in that very same year by both Harry James and the incomparable Ella Fitzgerald.
Please say.
Then you dive with swing.
Number 8, Walking in the Rain, Grace Jones.
Walking down the street.
Grace Jones could only have existed in the New Wave era. With her angular geometric shapes and cold, deadpan delivery, she was the early 80s personified. After tasting some success with a superb low-key cover of The Pretenders' Private Life, Jones released Walking in the Rain, again featuring her cynical and exotic spoken-word tones. The single didn't make any great impact on the charts, but it was one of the highlights of her top 40 album Nightclubbing, and it remains an iconic Grace Jones number.
Walking in the rain.
Walking in the rain.
The original was by the Aussie-based duo Flash in the Pan, better known to most as Harry Vander and George Young, former members of the Easy Beats, and in 1970s Australia, a veritable 2-man hit-making factory with their production skills and songwriting abilities. In their spare time, presuming that they had any, Harry and George stockpiled a bunch of tracks in which they sang and played everything. Using the name Flash in the Pan, they had 2 huge hits in Australia, the first being Hey St. Peter, the B-side of which was Walking in the Rain. Utilising George Young's curious telephone receiver vocal effect and some atmospheric synthesizer ideas, it was a unique sounding track, but if you didn't know better, you'd swear that they'd written the song especially for Grace Jones.
Walking in the rain.
Number 7, Brand New Cadillac, The Clash. Side 1, Track 2 on The Clash's almighty 3rd album London Calling, Brand New Cadillac was actually the first song to be recorded for the double LP, and it certainly helped launch the record off in fine style. It was never released as a single or even a B-side, but Brand New Cadillac deserves its place here simply due to the status of London Calling as an album and the fact that the song is one of the real kick-ass highlights of the record. The The original was by Vince Taylor and the Playboys, an early British rock and roll band, and the song can lay claim to being one of the three great pre-Beatles English vocal rock classics, along with Cliff Richard's Move It and Johnny Kidd and the Pirates' Shakin' All Over. Brand New Cadillac was originally just a B-side, but within a few years several European bands covered the song and Taylor himself had become big in France. Vince Taylor ended up having a checkered career to say the very least. He was certainly a wild man both on stage and off. In fact, he was the initial inspiration for David Bowie's rock and roll spaceman character, Ziggy Stardust.
I ain't ever coming back. I ain't ever coming back.
Number 6, I Go to Sleep, The Pretenders.
When I look up from my pillow, I dream you are there.
The connection between the Pretenders and the Kinks goes pretty deeply. Not only did the band score their first ever hit with a Kinks song, Stop Your Sobbin', but on the group's second album, Pretenders 2, they did I Go to Sleep, a song which Kinks' main man Ray Davies wrote, but was never actually recorded by his band. Pretenders frontwoman Chrissie Hynde later had a relationship with Davies, which was by all accounts feisty, to say the very least. Still, the Pretenders version of I Go to Sleep was perfect, from Hynde's caramel smooth vocals, Martin Chambers' delicate but innovative drumming, and that French horn. The original was by British beat group the Applejacks, a band best known for having a female bassist, Megan Davies, sometimes mistakenly reported as being Ray Davies' sister. In fact, she was no relation at all. Their version of I Go to Sleep with its strange clockwork beat pattern was not a hit, though in the same year both Peggy Lee and Cher also recorded the song.
I go to sleep, sleep, and imagine that you're there with me. I'm strong, I don't cry, I will love you till the day I die. You alone.
Number 5, Girls Talk, Dave Edmunds. The new wave era was great for young musicians and songwriters with something new to say, but it also provided a platform for several alternative artists who were well into their 30s. Debbie Harry, Ian Dury, Lemmy of Motorhead and Andy Summers of the Police all got to enjoy career resurgences thanks to the musical shake-up that punk and new wave provided, and so too did Dave Edmunds. Edmunds had been musically active since the 1960s, and his single Girls Talk was as fresh and radio-friendly as anything going around in 1979, and it made the top 10 in both the UK and Australia. Girls Talk was originally recorded by Elvis Costello and the Attractions in the sessions for their previously mentioned album Get Happy. The song didn't make the cut and ended up on the B-side to I Can't Stand Up for Falling Down. With a faux reggae feel and clocking in at just 1 minute 50, the song seems to just come and go without actually accomplishing anything. Dave Edmunds, however, fleshed it out to over 3 minutes and really brought out the pop genius in it. Number 4, Money, The Flying Lizards.
The best things in life are free.
The Flying Lizards were an avant-garde collective of musicians led by producer David Cunningham. Their self-titled debut album contained many of his compositions, but also a couple of eccentric versions of old tunes, such as Summertime Blues and Bertolt Brecht's Mandalay Song. The single Money became a surprise international smash, with its pots and pans percussion, twanging banjos, bizarre tape delay effects, and Vivian Goldman's posh pony club vocal delivery. It was pretty clear that this was one-hit wonder territory all the way, but I doubt that the Flying Lizards had even expected to get that far.
That's what I want. That's what I want.
Your love give me such a thrill.
The original was the debut single by Barrett Strong, a singer who later became better known as a lyricist, co-penning such classics as War, I Heard It Through the Grapevine and Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Money was co-written by Berry Gordy Jr., who released the single on his own Tamla recording label and later on his sister's label, Anna Records. Soon he would rename his entire operation the Motown Record Corporation, and pop music immortality would be born. Number 3, I Want Candy, Bow Wow Wow.
I know a guy who's tough but sweet. He's so fine.
With With the demise of the Sex Pistols in 1978, manager and impresario Malcolm McLaren went out on the lookout for the next big thing. He hit upon Adam and the Ants first, but then persuaded 3 of the band members to leave and form a new group. It turned out to be a bit of a win-win situation in the end, because the new Adam and the Ants went on to have a year or two of massive hits, while the other group fell into place when they discovered an exotic-looking 14-year-old girl working in a dry cleaner's store. The girl's name was Annabella Lewin. She became the band's vocalist and they became Bow Wow Wow. I Want Candy was the group's 7th single and second and final UK top 10 hit, and though the record was only a minor international success at the time, it has since been included on several high-profile films, TV shows and TV commercials.
So sweet, you make my mouth water. I want candy. I want candy.
The original was by the Strange Loves, an American band from the mid-1960s who were not actually a band at all. They were songwriters and producers Bob Feldman, Jerry Goldstein and Richard Gotterer, and the press releases at the time actually claimed that the Strange Loves were in fact a group of sheep farmers from Australia. This was all a lot of fun until I Want Candy became a top 20 hit and suddenly a live working unit were required to go out onto the road. No problem, a bunch of nobodies were subsequently dispatched for touring duties and the Strange Loves continued to work from the studio. Number 2, Hanging on the Telephone, Blondie.
But I just got a call. Don't leave me hanging on the telephone.
The second single from Blondie's third and many would say their best album, Parallel Lines, Hanging on the Telephone contained all the things that made the band special. Lots of spiky, riffy guitars, some snappy Klemberg drumming, and a Debbie Harry vocal full of attitude and that great New York accent. But like all of their previous releases, Hanging on the Telephone failed to chart in their native USA, though that would finally change with their next release, the number 1 smash hit, Heart of Glass.
Oh, why can't we talk again? Don't leave me hanging on the telephone. Don't leave me hanging on the telephone.
The original was by The Nerves, a Californian power pop trio who made just one EP before disbanding. Hanging on the Telephone was written by vocalist guitarist Jack Lee. Blondie were obviously a fan of Lee's work because the Parallel Lines album also contained his song Will Anything Happen. Jack Lee never managed to have any success in his own right, but he did also write another little song called Come Back and Stay, which was a big hit for British singer Paul Young. Number 1, Tainted Love, Soft Cell.
Sometimes I feel I've got
The new wave era was a time of brand new technologies. Advances in drum machines, synthesizers and electronic sequencers could now make guitarists, drummers and bass players obsolete. The concept of the synth pop duo was something brand new, and Soft Cell were one of Britain's early exponents. Comprising singer Mark Armand and keyboardist Dave Ball, they'd put out an EP and a couple of singles before releasing Tainted Love on the independent Some Bizarre label. The single became nothing short of a phenomenon, spending a then record 43 weeks in the US charts, as well as making number 1 in the UK, Australia and 15 other countries.
I give you all a boy could give you. Take my tears and that's not me. Oh, tainted love.
The song was written by a guy called Ed Cobb, who'd had some success as a writer and producer in the fields of doo-wop, pop, garage punk and soul music. Tainted Love was first recorded by Cincinnati soul singer Gloria Jones, and it was a B-side to her flop debut single, and it probably would have drifted into absolute obscurity had it not been for the British northern soul scene. In 1973, a Bolton-based DJ named Richard Serling had bought a second-hand copy of the single whilst on a trip to the States, and on his return, it soon became one of the great dance floor fillers in northern soul clubs everywhere. Gloria Jones ended up living in England after she'd become romantically involved with glam rock legend and new wave hero Mark Bolan, and in 1976 she re-recorded Tainted Love specifically for the northern soul scene, and that second version is more than likely the one that the members of Soft Cell had heard in clubs. Sadly, a year later, Jones was driving Mark home after a long night out and she crashed his purple Mini into a tree. Gloria escaped with a broken arm and a broken jaw, but the 29-year-old Mark Bolan was killed instantly. Neither of them had been wearing seatbelts, and that, my friends, is the lesson for today. Don't forget to buckle up. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Uncovered. Please subscribe to our channel and look out for more top 10s in this series.